Howdy, y'all. It is Cody from the Keeper's Nerdum. How you all doing this evening? I wanted to take a moment. Had a good friend ask me, how do you exactly play Pokemon? And I thought the best way to do so was actually by using the paper playmat that comes with the V Battle decks. And, the V Battle decks, they also come with like coin and stuff like that, if memory serves. That's where I got it. Yeah. And really neat. But this was actually super helpful. It's not actually completely accurate, but yet it gets you started in the game because there's actually a little bit more to it. But I think it's a great place to start to give you some examples. So what we have is the rundown, and I'll just make sure it's always in the screen. You have your prize cards over here. How you win the game when you play Pokemon is by getting 6 prize cards from your prize cards. And your prize cards are just cards from your deck. They are random cards. And so we'll talk about deck construction here in a moment, but I just want to run through this exact concept here. So you have prize cards. They're 6 random cards from your deck, and you don't know what they are. You put them in a stack right here, and you usually just work your way down. I'm not exactly sure on this part as far as the rules of do you have to go from the top card or not? And that's an interesting question that I haven't seen a direct answer, at least from the rules that I've read past basic rules. So that being said, it's just something to note. But first off, what we have here is the Pokemon bench. This is where your Pokemon go when they're not active, as in being used to attack and essentially defend. And when I say defend, they're just getting hit with their hit points. But your active Pokemon will go up front to fight. And so you've got your attack cost on the left, your attack damage over on the right. Your hit points will be up here as well as your name. And super, super important there. You also typically have on the very far side, I'll try to get over there, your deck. And this is where you take your cards from. Every turn you'll get to draw a card, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And your discard pile. This is where your cards go whenever you use them up. So pretty simple stuff. But one of the best things about the V-Battle deck is this little section right here of what you can do during your turn. And it walks you through, and once you're used to it, it's not hard at all. But at first it looks like a lot of info. And then let's just walk through this, and I'll show you a deck concept as far as deck building and all this, because that's also a piece of how do you play. Because Pokemon in this game also require energy, and that's one thing to note as we walk through this. And so really we need to walk through this to help you understand what your deck also needs. So first off, every time in your beginning of your turn, you'll draw a card, and you have to do it. And the reason you have to is if you ever go to draw at the beginning of your turn and you can't, then you lose the game immediately. Game over. So that's a side note thing that's not on here, but it's very important to note. But it also gets you cards to do things. Then you put a basic Pokemon onto your bench, as many as you want. So you can just keep laying out basic Pokemon. And a basic Pokemon, well, let's just show you. And this is where the things get interesting. Unfortunately, my deck concept is very weird. So we've got basic Pokemon, right? It says basic right up there. Same right here with this Zacian. Just happened to be what was nearby, and I grabbed them. So as long as they're basic, they can go out here as first off. You also then attach energy, 1 energy per turn. Now, there are cards that break all these rules. That's the point of the game, is finding cards that break the rules in ways that are legal. So in this case, this is a metal energy built deck. And so I can attach 1 energy card to one of my Pokemon per turn. That's it. That's the limit unless you have cards that break the rules. So we need to just keep that in mind. The next thing is you can retreat your active Pokemon. You can only do it once. So if you retreat, then you're locked in with the Pokemon that you bring out. So keep that in mind. And that means taking them from the active spot back to the bench. Very simple. Then you can also evolve your Pokemon as many as you want. So what we're talking about here is taking a Pokemon. So take Magnezone, for example. Magnezone says he's a stage 2, and it says evolves from Magneton. So it's basically you're taking them through their life cycle of what they should become and or be. And so in this case, we are looking for Magneton, but also if you know Pokemon at all, you know that it doesn't just start at Magneton either. It actually starts even earlier than that. So we have a Magneton, but you'll see it's a stage 1, and it evolves from Magnemite. So it's not even a basic. Magnemite is a smaller. And I think it's kind of an appropriate thing that what is it actually evolving into? Magnemite is just collecting with two other magnets and becoming a bigger version of itself, and then Magnezone completely changes itself. So you can evolve a Pokemon as many as you want. However, a Pokemon can only evolve once per turn. And so the very first turn you play the game, you cannot evolve a Pokemon because it's the first turn that it's been out. So you have to wait a turn before it can evolve. And there are exceptions to that with cards, right? But that's the typical rules. The next thing is this: play trainer cards, as many as you want. And so a trainer card is very, very important. Let's go through these. These are the two standard types, are supporter and item card. It says item right up here, and supporter. Very, very simple. These cards are like, in some ways, the most boring of the cards, other than maybe energies. Well, yeah, they're not quite as boring as energies, but they actually are what make the deck actually do what it needs to do. Because if you can't get to the Pokemon you need, then you're not going to win. Even if you might have the coolest Pokemon in the game that do awesome abilities, if you don't have right supporter cards, you won't get to them. Item cards are usually a lot less powerful, but you can play as many as you want, but you can only ever play one supporter card per turn, and I don't think we've ever seen any rules to change that, actually. And so supporters will say this, I think specifically trainer cards, that like these are actual trainers, like the people that are helping you, whereas these are just trainer cards that are just items. So they help in some ways, and they're still very useful, but they're less powerful because you can play more of them. So that's the balance that you have to figure out. Now, the other thing that you can do is use abilities. Now, abilities are things that a card will have on it that says ability. And I always get in trouble for this because often I say, what's the ability on that attack? And there's text associated with attacks, but abilities are their own separate thing. So this chunk of text right here is an ability that Zacian V has, or in this case, Magnezone. Now, this is a perfect example of what can break the game. It's called Giga Magnet. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 6 cards of your deck and attach any number of metal energy cards you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. Very, very strong because it gets around the thing of only 1 energy per turn. This lets you go with as much as you can reveal on the top 6 cards. So this Magnezone is super simple and yet super, super useful. And so lastly, in this, you attack with your active Pokemon. So if you have enough energy on your Pokemon, in this case, Brave Blade costs 3 energy and takes 200 and does 230 damage. So if you have 3 metal energy on it, it does 230 damage. Oh, but wait, it has an extra text. During your next turn, this Pokemon can attack. So if you use this with 3 energy for 230 damage, next turn he can't attack. But you may be able to retreat him and put somebody else in that could hit that turn as well. So what you've got here is a game of going through these steps. And what we didn't realize when we first started playing was there are 2 pieces that always happen and stay the same as far as timing. And then it's step 1 and 8. Because after step 8, it's your opponent's turn. And you do some end of round checking stuff that they don't have on here for burned, poison, confused, stuff like that. Just to see what's going on, like asleep, a few of those things that you check at the end of a turn. So it's not really on here because they're really just wanting to get you started with the concept. But drawing a card and then attacking, those happen. But one of the things that you don't get in the basic rules right away is steps 2 through 7, you can do in any order you want. You can equip an energy and then put a basic Pokemon on your bench. You can play trainer cards and then put basic Pokemon. You can retreat and then evolve a Pokemon and then attach an energy. These are the things of steps 2 through 7 are just things that happen anytime you desire. That's the beauty of it. It's actually really neat, but the basic rules of this get you started. And we were playing that at first, we're like, this is really rigid. And then we found out in reading the rules fully that no, you can do all of these pieces anywhere you want as far as the order, steps 2 through 7, which really changes the game because then you can move stuff around and do what you need to do. So the big thing about this then is how do you play the game? On a typical turn, so we'll just say we have, let's just take a basic hand. Let's see what we got here. Ironically, this is a terrible hand, but let's say we started the game with Yeah. Perfect. All right. We're just going to say we started the game with this. All right. And in fact, I'll switch out one more card for a switch. And let's just talk about it. So in the beginning of the game, you set up everything. You get your deck ready. You put prizes out after. Okay, get your deck ready. You draw 7 cards. And as long as you have a basic Pokemon, you're ready to go. And once you do that, you put your basic Pokemon face down in the active spot. And then once both sides are good, you get your prizes out and you set them there. All right. So you get 6 prize cards. Boom. And so we'll just play this out as though it's an actual deck thing. So we've got everything set up and ready to go. All right. Now I totally didn't shuffle and actually draw a hand. I made this up on purpose just to give you an example. Now on the first turn, before this first turn, both players will reveal their Pokemon. And what happens then is the person who goes first, and you do that by a coin toss, they can do everything in their turn except for 2 things on the very first turn. The person who goes second can do all of it. But the person that goes first, because they do have an advantage of getting an extra energy before the other, they get an energy out before the other person. The 2 things they cannot do is they cannot play a supporter card. So we're talking about this, and they cannot attack. They can use abilities. They draw a card. So at the beginning of my turn, I would draw a card. Oh, look, Shieldon. But it's not a basic. It's a restored Pokemon, and it needs something with Armor Fossil Shieldon. So we would have to have a specific card to play this Shieldon. All right. So very important there. On my turn, I can put as many basic Pokemon as I have in my hand, which I don't have any. I have none there. I can attach an energy to my Magnemite, which I will do. So now he has the ability to use his attack, but on turn 1, I cannot. His first attack shuffles up to 3 magnet energy from your discard pile into your deck. Pretty cool. And so in this case, we can go through these as well. Retreat to active. I don't have another Pokemon. Evolve Pokemon. Now, I do have Magneton, but this is turn 1, so technically he was just played this turn, so I cannot evolve him yet. So we have to wait a turn. And so then we could play trainer cards. So the one trainer card I can play, because on turn 1, if you're the first player, you cannot play supporter cards. But this was a great one. For example, draw cards until you have 1 more card in your hand than your opponent. And so if your opponent's drawing tons of cards, this is crazy. But the one card I could technically play normally is Switch. It's an item card, so it works. I switch my active Pokemon with one of my benched Pokemon, and right now I don't have any in the bench. So I can't actually switch him. There's nothing down here to switch with. But technically I could use this card, and then nothing really would happen. And so we would at this point have to go, I pass my turn. That's all I can do. They would take their turn to probably attack me and give me some sort of damage or something, and you can keep track with dice. You can keep track with little chips. But we'll say, hey, he did 20 damage to me somehow. Cool. So on this next turn, I draw another card, and I get a Stage 2 Bastiodon, and he's from a Shieldon. Well, I already have the Shieldon in my hand, but I'm missing the thing that Shieldon comes from. So unfortunately, I can't do anything with those. But on my turn, I am going to decide to... Well, you know what? Let's just start by evolving a Pokemon. Let's evolve into Magneton. We've got the magnets grouped up together. We're also going to attach an energy. And so now the abilities have changed on my Pokemon of now it's called Bounce Back. And so first off, I'm going to play, before I do any attacking, Zissou. And I'm going to draw cards until I have 1 more card than my opponent. How many cards do you have, opponent? And they're going to say, let's say in this case, 6. I have 4 cards, so I get to draw 3. 1, 2, 3. And so I have pulled an extra Pokemon that is a basic, so I can actually put Zacian down here. I have pulled a Freshwater Set item card that heals 20 damage from each of my Pokemon. Let's just play that. Let's play it. I heal 20 damage off of my Pokemon. Now, I pulled also a supporter card, but I cannot use this turn. Why? Because I've already used the supporter card this turn, so I cannot use Marnie. And she's a good card as well, because she actually affects your opponent as well. If you want to pause it and read it, that is a fantastic card, but you just need to be aware that it affects your opponent for good or worse, depending on what they pull. And so in this case, what have we got? We've got, I could switch my Pokemon now if I want to, but I have energy to attack with. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say I'm attacking you, and I'm using Bounce Back for 50 damage. Okay, 50 damage. Let's see it right there. All right. And it also has a secondary part to it. Your opponent switches their active Pokemon with one of their benched Pokemon. Now, if they don't have any benched Pokemon, no switch happens. But if they do, they're forced to do this, but it's their choice. And so they will have to switch, which could be pretty devastating if they don't have energy on them and can't really get to their attacks, especially if it's a bigger card. For example, Zacian here, no energy right now. He's going to struggle to do anything. He's a beautiful card, but unfortunately takes a little bit more energy. And so as the game goes, say my Magneton hits something else again for 50 damage. Cool, I knock him out. What I will do is I'll take one of my 6 cards over here and take it as a prize card. And it's one of my cards for my deck, which is a Metagross. And so I have the evolutions that lead up to it, Metang and Beldum, right? But right now in my hand, as I've shown you, I don't have those. So what I'm looking for is those pieces to actually get to this one, because Metagross is in this deck for this ability. And abilities happen even if they're on the bench, which makes them really useful. In this case, my Pokemon in play have no retreat cost. So things that have massive costs for retreat, for example, let's just look at this real quick. This is Zacian, all right? His retreat cost right down here is 2 energies. They're colorless, meaning it could be any type of energy. So when you see these icons, those silver ones are metal energy, and these white and black in the middle stars, they are actually colorless energy, meaning it can be any type of energy at all. So you could run a deck that has multiple energies in it and equip those and use certain abilities. Now, in this case, you'd still have to, in order to use Zacian's upper attack, you'd have to have 2 metal energies and a colorless. And the colorless could just be another metal energy. And in this deck, that's exactly what it's going to be. That's because that's all it's running. So that's really the basics of it. The one thing that changes is because the game now is in a moment where, if we look through this deck for a second, this is a perfect example. We have what's called V cards. V cards are more powerful versions of the Pokemon, and really it's just an excuse, I think, to speed the game up. And it's fun, and they are beautiful cards, but unfortunately it's not also great for the game, because sometimes if the game would be a little slower, we could see quite a bit more interactions. But I get both sides. So he has 230 health. He is a metal. And side note, anytime you attack with a Pokemon, he or she or whatever is that particular type whenever they attack. It doesn't matter what kind of energy is taken down here. It matters what kind of Pokemon symbol is up here. In this case, metal. So this Pokemon is a metal Pokemon when it attacks with anything. And so if a Pokemon were to have a weakness to metal, it would take potentially double damage from that. We also do have resistances where Pokemon will actually take less damage from certain attacks. And so, so in this case, 30 less damage from leaf energy attacks as far as leaf powered up critters. So if it has up here just a colorless, it's just a generic, then it wouldn't count for that. But if it had a leaf up here, then it's attacking as a leaf Pokemon. So if a colorless, they just had the colorless symbol up here, and they did have leaf energy down here, it doesn't matter. They still are just colorless, so it doesn't count for resistances or anything. But the last part right here that I want to draw attention to is retreats. So in this case, Aggron V costs 4 energies to retreat, 4 colorless, so it can be any type of energy. That's a lot, and that's why in part Metagross is in here, is because it makes them have no retreat cost. So all of a sudden now, instead of 4, this costs 0 to retreat, and so we can just switch out for a free action. So what you're doing in this game is really, you're trying to beat your opponent, but you're also, as you're playing and getting your deck ready, you're trying to figure out, what do I need? And so far what I have stuck with is the basics of what I learned from the V-Battle deck. 17 or 18 energies in this deck. Your deck has to be 60 cards, all right? 60 cards contained within this type of, your deck, whatever that typing might be. So 60 cards, 18 of that, 17, 18 is energies because you're going to need to power a lot of stuff. All right. The next part of that is 20 to 21 or so Pokemon. All right. We're talking Pokemon as far as the different things in the deck, and that's evolutions and other things. And oh, look, there's a colorless Pokemon. So when this attacks, it is just as colorless. So funny thing, its weakness is electricity, resistant to fighting. Fun stuff, right? Okay. And oh, look at that. It evolves actually into a dragon, Altaria. If you haven't played Pokemon before, that seems really strange. But if you know a little bit about Pokemon, you know anything can be a dragon for no good reason. But this is the interesting thing. Actually, what's funny is to point out is when you're building a deck, sometimes you're doing certain things for certain reasons. In this case, in order to actually attack with Altaria, I would need a water energy and a metal. There is no water energy in this deck. So why is Altaria in here? The answer is actually just for the ability to get supporter cards fast. So anyway, so 17, 18 energies, 20, 21 Pokemon, and then the rest are just, and this is where it's fascinating to me, is the rest are just this. They're item cards. And there's another type of item card or trainer card known as a stadium, which stadiums stay out all the time. They are very helpful if you get the right ones, but this deck just doesn't have that yet because I haven't found the right card for them. So this was a deck kind of built on a cheapo budget, but it actually works very well. And so you have the rest of your cards are trainer cards. So what you're doing is the not so glamorous cards that are, just above energies as far as glamour. But these are the things that matter so much to how your deck plays. Because take a Barry, for example. This is just a simple card that starts the game concept here. He just draws 3 cards. But those are 3 more cards in your hand that you could use to do other things. Maybe it's a Pokemon you needed to evolve. Or in this case, Gloria searches your deck for 3 basic Pokemon that don't have a rule box and put them on your bench. Then shuffle your deck. Pokemon Vs, GXs have rule boxes. And that's something important to note. So your deck is really just, it's almost 20-20-20 with some slight to that, because once you have only 17, 18 energies, then there's a little bit more room for trainers or Pokemon. And so really that's how you build a deck. It's super simple, but you have to start somewhere and start there. 18 energies, 21 Pokemon, and then the rest fill in for your 60 as trainer cards, all right? In a mix of items versus supporters. One last thing to note, because you just saw that card that said, hey, search for 3 basic Pokemon that don't have a rule box. One thing to note right here, let's get real close. V rule right down here. All right, you see it? And it says when your Pokemon V is knocked out, your opponent takes 2 prize cards. So the reason these things are so powerful is so they can have some interesting and entertaining effects. But there's a cost, and that cost is that they take 2 prize cards if they kill this, if they knock it out, right? And that's the beauty of the game. They always use when it's knocked out, not ever dead, because if you watch Pokemon, it's all about that they're just having battles and then they go back to the nurse and everything's fine. So it's an elaborate game, and actually there's even Pokemon cards that give 3 prize cards, and they're even bigger and badder than the Zacian V right here. So when you're playing Pokemon, it's a race towards getting everything equipped with energy to do enough damage to wipe out stuff, and also to really control your opponent's deck. There are cards like a card known as Boss's Orders that switches your opponent's active Pokemon with one of their benched, and you get to choose their Pokemon. That's dangerous for them because you can win games with that card just because you can switch out the thing that they were trying to hide because they retreated him last turn because he was about to die, and then knocked out a Pokemon from yours on their turn. And so then on your turn, you can go, actually, let's play Boss's Orders, and you're switching that back in, and I'm taking it out, I'm knocking it out, and I win. So again, keep in mind, the game is very simple to play. You work your way through these. 1 and 8 have to happen in that, at their spot, but 2 through 7, you can go in any order you want. And build a deck that's about 18 energies to start, 21 Pokemon, and then the rest of your 60 cards are supporters, and half of those should be item cards, half should be trainer cards. Half should be item cards and half should be supporters. So as long as you're building into that, you'll be fine. And it doesn't mean your deck's going to be good right away, because sometimes it just requires collecting the right cards. Because you can have the most beautiful card in the world, but it doesn't really matter if it doesn't do enough for your deck. And that's where learning and playing comes in. And that's what's really fun, is you start building a wonderful deck that's yours, that you enjoy, based around Pokemon that are your favorites. It doesn't have to always be good. And it really doesn't ever have to be good, as long as you're having fun. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below what kind of deck you're building and if this was helpful. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye.